Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today's guest is Michael Thompson, who's the Public Works Director for Plymouth, Minnesota. Thank you for joining me, Michael.
Chad, thanks for having me. I look forward to chatting with you today.
I appreciate your time and thank you for joining me. And one of the things we do on that Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast is learn more about you and how you got started in the industry. It looks like you are an engineering assistant somewhere in California. Can you brief us on where you started and how you got into the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my undergrad degree in civil engineering from California State University, Chico, so in Northern California, and went right into the private sector out there doing some project engineering on wastewater type systems. So I was there for a stretch and then ended up working for Sacramento County for their water resources division for about a year. And then that's when I kind of made a life change and flew out here and decided to live in Minnesota and started with Maplewood, the city of Maplewood over in the East Metro. Right. And I started back in 2005 there and started as an entry-level engineer and then just kind of worked my way up. So that's where I spent a majority of my career from 2005 to 2017.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of experience and time as a public works director. I know Maplewood's a decent sized town. It's about 40,000 people roughly. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's what it is about right now. So it was a great city to work for and still keep in touch with some of my colleagues there.
Yeah, I remember traveling up there a lot and stopping in the public works departments, meeting the different guys that work there. So very familiar with the area. Interesting. You moved from California to Minnesota. Was there something with that? Or because most people just don't move to California and go straight to Minnesota. Is there a family there? Is there a tie there that you had, bringing back?
Growing up in Northern California, beautiful country. So up north, we called it God's country in California.
Okay.
Mountains, you had Tahoe, you could take a drive to the beach. So I grew up in the northern Sacramento Valley. But yet never thought I would end up in Minnesota, but I moved out here because of a girl that I ended up getting engaged to and marrying. And awesome. So the reason it wasn't a career move, it was about a girl, and then moved out here, and then kind of career growth happened with all of that.
That's really cool. Nice. Yeah. So love brought you to Minnesota. We could describe it, right?
I'm still here, so I must still be in love. So
you are still there. That's a good thing. So Michael, your experience as a engineering assistant, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that because becoming a leader, and I know you have different education from different colleges and stuff like that. I think you had an MBA and some other degrees. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my undergrad degree, then I have a handful of certificates, and I got my master's in infrastructure systems engineering back in 2009 through the University of Minnesota. But I have my professional engineering license both here in Minnesota and California as well.
Okay, nice. So as you're, going through these different, careers and learning more about the industry, what made you want to just move up into the director position? I mean, it's got to be something there to that, right? As you start to learn more, and you're just curious on how you made that the decision.
Yeah, I started, as I said, in 2005 out here in Maplewood, Minnesota, as just an entry-level engineer. So I didn't really have an idea of how quickly I wanted my career to grow or whatnot, but I would say I had a great mentor who pushed me to get more involved and to take on more responsibility. He was my boss when I was over in Maplewood. His name was Chuck. And so I think without his mentorship or pushing me, I don't know that I would have moved up as quickly as I would have. So starting in 2005 as a entry level engineer. Then I think it was 2007, I moved into the assistant city engineer role. And then in '09 as the city engineer proper. And then, I had a handful of titles, and it was a city engineer, deputy public works director, and then public works director. So it's one of those jobs that it kind of organically grew. And um, yeah, I would
Yeah.
say having a good mentor, somebody to push you and challenge you, is the key sometimes, because I don't know that I would have uh, moved up as quickly as I did if not for that.
Yeah. That's huge. Having a mentor in life, a coach, in any situation, having someone to bounce things off of is definitely helpful. Especially, it seems like in your case, of moving up. So, what were some of the challenges you and Chuck were working through? Just curious, and like, you know, things you might have done as you were young and moving things up. That one of those things Chuck was like, you know what, you got to change the way you're doing things, or was there any of those moments?
Yeah, I would say there was mentorship there, but at the same time, he would push me to go figure things out by myself,
Yeah,
So being a brand new engineer, attending planning commission meetings, sometimes making good decisions, other times, oops, we have to go back and redo this. Um, yeah, so he kind of let me grow at kind of my own pace, but pushed me out there pretty quickly.
yeah,
I remember working through special assessments, which is a big thing at municipalities. That's a revenue source for paying for road construction, and getting to kind of talk about the project during our public hearings, and kind of throwing me into the lion's den right away and kind of getting that
yeah.
experience. So, I mean, that's where you learn the business, at least on the city side, is at the city council meetings, the planning commission meetings, working in front of groups, answering tough questions. So I remember as a young engineer, you're in this technical mind. Everything, you have to have a
Yeah.
technical answer for everything. And one thing he taught me is just keep it to yes or no if you can. Keep it short and sweet. You don't need to give something technical for every question. A lot of these questions are rhetorical because we're in the game of politics. So a lot of it is
Right.
just listening and understanding the situation. When you have a resident coming up complaining about an issue, listen, acknowledge the concern, and then just say, hey, I'm going to follow up. So I think I learned a lot of great tips at my time over there, not only from Chuck, but a lot of my other colleagues as well.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's definitely a community I see with a lot of public works directors, even here in Chicago. Everybody kind of bounce ideas off of each other. It's kind of a group community thing that everybody seems to establish when you're a director. But I like the way you describe Chuck basically throwing you into the fire. He's like, Michael, you're just going to go to these nighttime meetings, I'm sure, council meetings. It's probably things you didn't want to do, but I would assume he kind of tossed you in there, and it was like, let's go to it and learn from the way I had to learn, right? I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. And I think without that, I think my growth would have been slower, because I think when you're put into those tough situations, whether you make the right or wrong decisions, it's a great way to learn. I even, for some of our special assessment hearings, we had objections, and I was one of the city representatives that actually went to district court to
Wow.
defend some of our challenges with our city attorney. And so getting to learn not just, hey, this is what we do in engineering, but learning other parts of the municipal process. So how the law interacts with your department, how does public works interact with community development. So you really have to work with a host of people to be successful in the industry.
Yeah, that's for sure. No doubt about that. So, you're moving up through the industry. You got your position. You've been in the public works director, I think, almost 15 years now. It looked like something like that. It's you've been in the position. So, if you were training a young professional today, would you do the same thing as what Chuck did with you?
Yeah, I would say you want to, obviously start them out with some good tools and knowledge and spend some time with them up front, but also, yeah, absolutely get them involved with the planning commission. That's something I've done a few times here in Plymouth. Is some of our newer staff, I will go to the planning commission and attend with them just to kind of show them what that's like.
Yeah.
And so I think getting them involved in the day-to-day city work is important, but also like I said, the council or the planning commission or the environmental quality commission, those are all integral to the city. But also one thing that I do is push training opportunities to our staff, whether it's through different city engineers association or the APWA, American Public Works Association. There's a number of courses that are tailored to whether it's a new engineer, or maybe it's a maintenance, on the maintenance side, maybe it's a supervisor on the maintenance side. So what I've learned is there's a lot of great things out there, and we like investing in our people to gain knowledge. Not only that, but also meet with colleagues, learn from other colleagues on what they're doing, what's working, what's not working. And that's been great here at the city of Plymouth too, is they're willing to invest in their people to gain skills and knowledge. And so they've been very supportive of continuing education. And I think that's a big part of anybody's growth journey.
100%, man. Just get education, get your degrees, whatever you can, get your certificates, and learn as much as you can from those institutions, as well as just from other people. All that's really important. So as you were working on projects, I saw that you were awarded the APWA award in 2021 through, I guess, the Minnesota chapter. Is that how you got awarded? Trying to figure out exactly what that award was, but I saw you got an award for something in APWA in 2021. What was that?
Yeah, so I was nominated for the Public Works Director of the Year for the Minnesota chapter of Public Works Association. So that was great, very unexpected, and certainly appreciate that recognition. So I was at the annual conference, and during the awards ceremony, they started listing off, hey, this is where the person went to school. And so it finally hit me, and then I look in the back of the room, and family is there, coworkers, and so a very pleasant surprise. Was not expecting that, and I think that's just a reflection on all the great people in the industry working together, just to make Minnesota a better place, infrastructure-wise, improving lives of residents through our services and operations. And so, like you said before, it's a community all working together of colleagues to make things successful.
Yeah, that's great, man. Congratulations on that. That's a great achievement, in your career. So as I was looking at your background in Maplewood, it looked like you had a project called Living Streets. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Yeah, we had a living streets policy. That is correct. And we're going back a few years now, but that's something I was very involved with. And so most people know what complete streets are, right? That's where you take a road and it's not just vehicle traffic, but how do you accommodate pedestrians and bikes and other modes of transportation? And then you have kind of the green side of things. So, how are you treating stormwater? What's your tree canopy? Rain gardens, boulevard planting. So the living streets is kind of what we had called it by combining complete streets and green infrastructure. So that's kind of how we got to the living streets concept. But that was one of my more fun endeavors, working with departments across the city and leading that effort and getting that adopted by the city council to inform what our future street reconstruction projects look like. And so Maplewood has always been very progressive on the green and sustainability side of things. So but yeah, so yeah, you're really digging into my past. So
I always like to learn about you, and just try and understand a little bit. Next question is going to be asset management, because it looks like that's something you're really passionate about. Is that correct?
yeah, that's
Awesome.
something I'm very passionate about. We got an asset management system implemented in Maplewood shortly before I left, and then starting over here in Plymouth. That was back in the summer of 2017, and it took us about a year and a half or two to pick an asset management system and get that implemented over here. So that's something that I'm very proud of, working with my colleagues over here to roll that out.
Yeah.
But it's always crazy, you have huge cities, maybe 80,000 isn't a big city to some people, but in Minnesota, 80,000 is a decent size. But if you're tracking all of your infrastructure, whether it's manholes, streets, pipes, storm runs, everything's on Excel spreadsheets and all
Oh,
different, locations, and residents are calling 10 people and everybody's responding to the same issue. There's just a lot of inefficiencies. So we implemented an asset management system, not only to track our assets, out in the field. So
yeah.
streets, what's the street rating? Fire hydrants, what condition are they in? When's the last time we worked on them? I mean, everything now is just a push of a button to run a report to see how many times we've been to this hydrant or what year it should be replaced. So, and then not only that, but then the program also helps us with workflow. So helping
Nice.
our crews schedule day-to-day work, and also a component where the public can submit issues
Right.
that go directly to the right person, and we take care of that. But
Yeah.
it's pretty powerful. So people that haven't looked at it, I mean, just an example, you can query, a resident maybe calls in, and so you put their name in there, and then it auto populates. Hey, this same resident called 8 times this year about the same issue or a different issue. So you
Yeah.
can really see the residents that are pretty involved in reporting different issues,
That can
making
be
sure
good
you
and
don't. Yeah,
bad.
good or bad. And then, we're not doubling up and wasting time, on the same issues. And
Yeah.
so um, there's a lot of benefit to that. Obviously, there's a lot of investment in time and learning, and then also, there's a monetary investment. But
Yeah.
every city has to look at, kind of the benefits and what the payback is. But for us, it's working great thus far.
Yeah, because if you don't understand your assets, right? If you don't understand the depreciation of those assets, how fast they're depreciating, and then the money you're going to need to replace all these assets, right? As a financial asset planning tool, you can really find yourself in a grind in the future, trying to get
Yeah.
money allocated to fix water pipes, for example, sewers, anything nowadays. You got to have some kind of justification, it seems. So it's great to see that you have some, initiative to take as asset management, because I've seen cities that even 80,000 that still don't have a good, robust asset management system. And you think to yourself, like, how do you plan for that? Right?
Yeah.
How do you show your budgeting of what you need money wise? And then how do you walk into council and be like, here, council, this is what I need. And it's just on an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF document that you print out. Right. So how does that
Right.
work? Right. But
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And I think some of those cities will get there eventually, but for some, it works. You may not have much turnover, and you always have the same staff that have been there 30 years, and they have all that background. But at some point, that knowledge transfer has to happen, whether it's through an asset management system or training in the new person that hopefully doesn't leave with all that information. So
yeah,
most cities have a way of figuring it out, and it's just kind of the preference. But for us, I think we're on a roll here, and I would say we're kind of still in the infancy. I mean, there's a lot of fine tuning that we're
yeah,
working through and doing, but it certainly helps inform our 10-year capital improvement plan, and helps us with where do we need to set water rates or sewer rates, or is our
yeah.
assessment policy right size for moving forward. So it really helps in that, like you said, the long-term planning of your infrastructure replacement.
For sure. Yeah. Just having, like you said, the button where you prints out all that information, and, that just makes your life a ton easier, I'm sure, having that software available. When you mentioned labor, I want to touch on that because everyone's having the labor struggles and labor issues. Is there, and I've heard some departments like poaching other, public works department, employees and things like that. Is that a common thing you're hearing now? Like, or seeing anywhere? Like, I just heard it recently, so I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody's poaching or actively, you know.
I had someone ask me that, or I heard somebody say that, and I was like, "But they're poaching stuff." I think it was in Texas, just FYI. So it's totally
Okay,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. See,
So
that
he
sounds
was
like
Texas.
Texas language there. But yeah, I would say with COVID hitting and the Great Resignation, there has been a lot of turnover. Not only in public works, but
Right.
all of our departments. And employees can, at least they could be more selective. So, hey, if they're comparing this healthcare plan against, another city's healthcare plan, maybe there's enough to tip somebody to move just based on something like that. So what we have found is things are a lot more competitive, especially on the government side. And so I know our HR department was very aware of that, and we just recently completed a pay equity study. And so I think every city is finding ways. How do you recruit and retain your talent, and how do you invest in people?
Right.
And it's not all monetary. It's recognition. It's being part of a team, providing flexibility in the workplace. And so I don't know that there's a perfect formula, but I
Yeah.
know every city's doing it a little differently.
Yeah. Oh, it's part of the program you're talking about, like training and things like that. It sounds like you guys have a great onboarding plan with your employees as they come on and get them trained up. And it sounds like you guys are moving in the right direction when it comes to labor stuff. How do you think we could improve the way we attract labor to our industry right now? Is there any type of method that you've thought of that might be helpful?
We have been getting more involved with youth programs. So the Wayzata School District or the Robbinsdale School District. So our maintenance staff, we're going out there teaching kids about our equipment and what it means to be in public work. So we're doing more
Nice.
on the public facing side, and then more recently we are trying to get approved an apprenticeship program for our maintenance side. So
Nice.
onboarding, full-time apprenticeship. I think we're looking to try to do 3 of those over the next couple years, where it makes it very easy for us to onboard them. They're getting paid, they're getting benefits, and then when a position opens up, they can just kind of slide right in. And so that's something new that we're working through and hoping
Yeah.
to onboard. But right now, with temporary employees or seasonal employees, where it's not benefit earning, it's just such a struggle to find people.
Yeah.
And whether it's in park maintenance or street maintenance, you name it, I think it's just difficult because people have other options out there. And with the unemployment rate being so low, it's just a competitive environment. So
Yeah.
benefit earning does kind of push that up, and maybe will attract some more people. So we're looking at that program, and we would rotate those new hires through streets, utilities, park maintenance, and just try to give them a sense of the whole operation.
Yeah.
Make sure they like it, and when a full-time position opens up, they're primed. It's theirs to lose, basically. So that's a way
Yeah.
to help find hopefully good full-time people.
Yeah. No, I've heard a couple of live events. I had a couple other directors on, and we were talking about technology. Starting to leverage that asset management tool as a way of attracting young professionals to try and get into the industry too. And I thought that was a great idea. How if we can show them asset management tools, the maps, the GIS systems, the things we use every day. I think that's going to be an advantage for us, and keeping things progressive moving forward. Right? It's just how do we get people.
Yeah.
Uh, But so all this other stuff going on, I got a curious question, the PFAS stuff. Just
Yeah.
like, how are you guys handling that now as the lead requirements, for making sure? I think Plymouth, Minnesota is a very new, city. So I don't know if the infrastructure is that old, but just curious on what's going on with the PFAS stuff that you're hearing and the lead rules that are coming out.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's the new buzzword out there is the PFAS, especially with water quality, and that's on everybody's radar as it should
Right.
be. Safe and clean drinking water is top priority. Luckily, over here in the West Metro, we're not dealing with as much of the PFAS issue. I know that's been kind of on the radar for the past few years in the East Metro with the 3M,
Oh yeah.
landfill and all of that. But I know the state and Department of Health and the federal government, they're reviewing the PFAS limits and requirements. And so we regularly meet with the Department of Health, and we actively, just like other cities, are having our wells tested for PFAS levels. And so at this point, Plymouth's in a really good position. So it doesn't look like we would need to add any, additional treatment or anything
Nice.
special. But some cities do, and you're seeing that needed over in the East Metro with retrofitting or building brand new water treatment plants. So PFAS will continue to get out there to the public, and with some of the media stories nationwide, we've had an uptick in calls to our plant operators just to explain our levels and the safe drinking water limits, and that we report this every year through the Department of Health, and we post it online. So clean drinking water here in Plymouth, and we're very fortunate, but we're looking at how do we increase our education about our drinking water and where we're at. So we've done some things with our city council to get them up to speed on PFAS through
Yeah.
some internal updates, but also getting our in our newsletter or our annual report just where we're at with our testing and that our water is safe. And then, as you know, the Minnesota legislature approved funding for lead service line replacement. So as you said, none of our water mains, contain the lead, but some of the older cities,
Yeah.
especially the service lines, do have lead, maybe instead of copper in some cases. So for us, we're again very fortunate on that front, but we're still doing an inventory, to see if any residential properties have private service lines that contain lead, and there is funding out there that we can leverage to help our residents that may have that. So I
Nice.
believe we just recently submitted our potential inventory. But again, we're very fortunate, but a lot of this just comes down to education and making sure your citizens are informed.
Yeah, it seems like every day it's in the news somewhere now. Just keeps popping up something about PFAS and not so much lead, but lead periodically pops in there too as a topic in the media. So, if there's anything you could kind of end this podcast with, what would that be? Like, what would you like to say to young professionals trying to get in the industry, um, and what you think you can do to make a difference, as a public works director?
Yeah, what I would tell the younger folks coming into the industry is get involved with the professional organizations. Make sure you're networking with your colleagues. Don't just stay in your own lane, and don't just stay in the walls of your own city or municipality. Make sure you're getting out there, getting involved, and that's what helped me the most is getting involved with organizations, sitting on committees, chairing different committees as well. And so the more you get involved, I think the more, especially if you're introverted, because I don't think I'm a natural extrovert by any means. My wife is, I am not. So I think that helped me break out of my shell as a younger engineer, just to get involved with others, especially with the professional organizations. And I think from there, when you develop relationships, that's what it's all about. And so
Yeah.
if you can do that, I think other things will naturally fall into place. You'll have people to reach out to get feedback on maybe a difficult issue you're working on, and how do you get through it? Hey, can you share your snow plowing policy with me? So there's just so many different ways to solve problems out there. And a lot of it depends on relying on your colleagues. We have a great network here in Minnesota, number of professionals, maintenance staff, you name it. And I'd like to think we do a great job here in Minnesota in networking and mentoring our younger engineers. So that would be my one main piece of advice, is just get involved.
Yeah. Awesome. How can people get a hold of you if they need to reach out? Just curious.
Yeah.
Put your cell phone number out there.
Yeah. If they Google, Michael Thompson, Plymouth, Minnesota, my information should be out there. So again, Public Works Director of Plymouth, Minnesota. So yeah, if a young engineer or, anybody has a question or comment, I'm certainly a resource, and always want to put myself out there to be such.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to finish out with opposites attract. Obviously, your wife's extroverted, you're introverted, so that's the way it goes. And you fell in love and moved to Minnesota to kind of end this. And you're still there as the public works.
Still here. Yep, still here.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure getting to learn more about you, and our audience is also hopefully thankful that they got to hear your message and understand more about you and what you're doing in Minnesota. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Chad. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.